Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition, and we turned out a poem 554, The Blackberry Wears a Thorn in His Side. The only time in all of her poems that Emily references the blackberry is here. Now, I think there's a lot going on here as it relates specifically to Emily's question of theodicy. That is to say, why must there be pain? Why must there be suffering in this world? And to what degree can we live with that? Now, Emily's audience, although it didn't exist, would have understood that Emily's making with this first line an observation regarding St. Paul, who in the 2 Corinthians 12, 7 through 10 passage relates that he has a specific thorn in his side, is what he calls it, some kind of limitation or something that's causing him pain. Now, our assumption is that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've worked through our set of introductory comments where we talked about our Big Five. And we talk about in Room 303, what does this text say about epistemology, what you can know, ontology, who you are, psychology, the study of the individual mind, sociology, the study of the collective or group mind, and then finally, that fifth one is theodicy, the question of pain and suffering in the world. I'm also hopeful that you've already read through and studied with us the previous 553 poems we just finished with 553 on crucifixion, one crucifixion. Now, speaking of crucifixion and pain and suffering, Emily would occasionally use her writing to deal with her suffering. In fact, in her third letter, letter 265 to the great Thomas Higginson, we're going to have some comment about him here in a few poems later. She told him, quote, of a palsy here, the verses just relieve. In other words, Emily's going to make the argument that sometimes when you're in a lot of pain, the best way to deal with it is through writing about it. Now, I want you to pay attention to the symbolism of the berry here. This is typical Emily. And I want you to pay attention to the verbs. So as we read through this poem, make sure you circle all the verbs. And let's pay attention to the power of them. She says it this way. The blackberry wears a thorn in his side, but no man heard him cry. He offers his berry just the same to partridge and to boy. He sometimes holds upon the fence or struggles to a tree or clasps a rock with both his hands, but not for sympathy. We tell a hurt to cool it. This mourner to the sky a little further reaches instead. Brave blackberry. The repetition, of course, of the bees and the final line are going to make us smile. And let's just notice that the longest line of the last stanza will relate how the blackberry vine will reach to the sky as the longest line. Notice, first of all, that the blackberry, we're told, will wear a thorn in his side. In other words, obviously, she's playing the game of the thorns of the bush, yes? But notice, no man heard him cry. What's the point? In other words, the blackberry can have a certain type of pain, but will never express that pain in any way. He, notice, offers his berry just the same to partridge and to boy. The idea here being that the blackberry bush doesn't ever allow pain or suffering to keep it from producing its fruit. You can already see the symbolism at play here. Notice she continues, he sometimes holds upon the fence, we're obviously speaking of the blackberry vine, or struggles to a tree. Again, notice your verbs here, from wears to struggles. Or another verb, clasps a rock with both his hands, but not for sympathy. You'll remember this key word, sympathy, when we come to our study of 743, a wiser sympathy, or 1685, the butterfly obtains but little sympathy. When we hit those poems, we'll come back to this idea of sympathy. In other words, there's a thorn, but no sympathy is asked for. We, notice the juxtaposition, we tell a hurt to cool it, sounding very much like what she suggested to Higginson. By tell here, we could say publish. In other words, much of the poetry of Emily Dickinson's is what? Her attempt to try to tell or publish her pain, her suffering, and the ways that she deals with it. We tell a hurt to cool it. This mourner, the blackberry now, to the sky a little further, reaches instead. Brave blackberry. Now, in 25 of her poems, she speaks of this word brave. When we get to poem 1613, she'll say it this way: not sickness stains the brave, nor any dart, nor doubt of scene to come, but an adjoining heart. What is the point that she's making here? Well, this is another one of Emily's, again, theodicies. We've commented on this before. Emily seems to suggest in her poetry that when bad things happen, because they must, instead of asking, why did this happen to me, it makes more sense to ask, why did this happen for me? And the ability to change the two to the for allows one to no longer see oneself as a victim in a universe where bad things happen and there's nothing that can be done about it. Now, the way Emily gets to a theodicy like this, a disciplined propedeutic, we might say, instructional, pain is somehow instructional, is to argue that the best way to deal with pain is to go through the pain. This sounding a lot like Dante, who argues you don't actually go to hell, but what? Through hell in his Divine Commedia. At 2b, I like the verbs here, right? Wears, offers, holds, struggles, clasps. At 3a, and the relationship to this, well, obviously we can think of our Dante, no doubt, and the Divine Commedia, and the ways in which pain and suffering is allowed for Dante the Pilgrim to happen. But then notice Virgil will say to him in Canto 24 of Inferno, up on your feet, this is no time to tire. Emily would say this is no time to whine, if you will. At 3b, finally, what was a time that you had to be brave in the face of suffering? And that's not easy to do always, is it? Thank you.